The autumn rain drummed against the tall windows of Westfield Academy's cafeteria, creating a rhythmic backdrop to the usual chaos of lunchtime. Students clustered around their designated tables like tribes claiming territory, the athletes dominating the center, the theater kids animated in their corner, the honor students hunched over textbooks while eating. And there, in the furthest corner by the emergency exit, sat Maya Chen. To anyone watching, Maya appeared to be the embodiment of invisibility. Her slight frame was draped in an oversized cardigan that seemed designed to help her disappear into the background. Wire-rimmed glasses perched on her nose as she methodically ate her homemade lunch, a simple sandwich and apple that stood in stark contrast to the elaborate meals her wealthier classmates purchased from the gourmet food stations. Her dark hair fell like a curtain around her face as she read a dog-eared copy of To Kill a Mockingbird, occasionally glancing up with quick, nervous movements that suggested someone perpetually on edge. What her fellow students couldn't see were the subtle details that would have alarmed anyone with security training. The way Maya's eyes swept the room in calculated patterns every 30 seconds. How she positioned herself with a clear view of all entrances while keeping her back to the wall. The slight bulge in her backpack that wasn't books but a panic button connected directly to a federal task force. Most telling of all was how she never, ever removed the thin silver bracelet on her left wrist, a bracelet that monitored her location, heart rate, and stress levels 24 hours a day. Maya Chen wasn't just any 17-year-old. She was the daughter of federal judge Patricia Chen, whose recent rulings on organized crime cases had earned her family a place on several very dangerous lists. The death threats had started 6 months ago, crude letters at first, then sophisticated packages that required bomb squads, and finally a credible intelligence report that someone had put a price on the judge's family. That's when Maya's normal teenage life had ended, and her carefully orchestrated protection detail had begun. Across the cafeteria, 3 individuals maintained their own careful routines, each playing a role so perfectly that even the faculty believed their cover stories. Jake Morrison pushed his janitor's cart between the tables with the unhurried pace of someone who'd been cleaning these floors for years. His uniform was appropriately wrinkled, his work boots scuffed, and his graying hair suggested a man in his 50s who'd found steady work at the academy. Students barely noticed him as he emptied trash cans and wiped down surfaces, making him effectively invisible, exactly what a federal agent needed to be. But beneath his maintenance worker facade, Jake was a 15-year veteran of the Secret Service, handpicked for this assignment because of his ability to blend into any environment. His cart wasn't just filled with cleaning supplies. Hidden compartments contained communication equipment, medical supplies, and enough firepower to handle a small army. The earpiece disguised as a hearing aid kept him connected to a command center 3 miles away, where analysts monitored every camera feed and communication signal in the school. 2 tables away from Maya, Sarah Martinez appeared to be just another transfer student trying to fit in. She'd arrived at Westfield 3 weeks after the threats against Maya's family had escalated, with a perfectly crafted backstory about her father's job relocation. Her designer backpack and carefully curated social media presence suggested a typical wealthy teenager, complete with photos from a previous school that had been digitally created by the FBI's tech division. Sarah made casual conversation with nearby students, always friendly but never quite close enough to anyone to raise suspicions about her background. What her new classmates didn't know was that Sarah was actually Agent Martinez, a specialist in close protection who'd graduated top of her class from Quantico. Her chemistry textbook was hollowed out to contain surveillance equipment, her smartphone was connected to federal databases, and the innocent-looking charm bracelet on her wrist could deploy a smoke screen or flashbang depending on which charm she activated. In the kitchen, Marcus Thompson had been working as a food service assistant for 2 months, long enough to establish himself as a quiet, reliable employee who showed up early and stayed late. His background check showed a clean record, steady employment history, and glowing references from previous food service jobs, all of it meticulously fabricated by federal agents. Marcus had a gift for remembering every student's food preferences and dietary restrictions, making him popular with both students and staff. What they didn't realize was that his exceptional memory came from years of training in surveillance and threat assessment. Every conversation he overheard was cataloged and analyzed. Every new face in the cafeteria was photographed and run through facial recognition software. The industrial kitchen gave him access to every part of the school through service corridors, and his position allowed him to monitor all food and drink that came near Maya without raising suspicion. The three agents had been watching Maya for weeks, learning her routines, identifying potential threats, and waiting for someone to cross the line from typical teenage meanness into something that could compromise her safety. They documented every cruel comment, every deliberate shoulder bump in the hallway, every time someone had accidentally knocked her books to the floor. But they'd held back, following strict orders to maintain their cover unless Maya faced immediate physical danger. Today felt different. Jake noticed it first as he emptied the trash near the popular kids' table. Brittany Summers was holding court with her usual entourage, but there was an edge to her voice that hadn't been there before. She kept glancing toward Maya's corner with a look that Jake recognized from years of threat assessment, the expression of someone working up the courage to do something they knew was wrong. "She thinks she's so much better than everyone," Brittany was saying, her voice carrying just far enough for nearby tables to hear. Sitting there all mysterious with her little books, like she's too good to talk to normal people. Her friend Jessica giggled nervously. "Maybe she's just shy." "Shy?" Brittany's laugh was sharp and cruel. "Please. I heard she got into Westfield because her mom knows someone important, probably bought her way in while the rest of us actually had to earn our spots." Jake's hand tightened on his mop handle. Through his earpiece, he heard Sarah's voice, barely a whisper, escalating verbal aggression, target acquiring focus on asset. Marcus, washing dishes with mechanical precision, felt his pulse quicken as he processed the conversation. In his peripheral vision, he could see Maya's stress levels spiking on the small display hidden in his watch. Her heart rate had jumped from a normal 72 beats per minute to 95, and her breathing had become shallow. She knew something was coming. The cafeteria's atmosphere seemed to shift as Brittany stood up, her chair scraping against the floor with deliberate loudness. Conversations at nearby tables began to quiet as students sensed drama brewing. Phones appeared in hands, ready to capture whatever was about to unfold for social media posterity. Maya's fingers tightened around her book, but she didn't look up. Years of training from her security detail had taught her that the best way to handle confrontation was to avoid giving bullies the reaction they craved. But as Brittany's designer heels clicked across the cafeteria floor, Maya's three protectors received the same silent alert on their devices. Threat level elevated. Prepare for engagement. Jake abandoned his mop, letting it clatter into the bucket as he began moving toward Maya's section of the cafeteria. His movements appeared casual, but he was calculating angles, distances, and potential weapons in the environment. Sarah closed her chemistry book with deliberate care, her hand moving to the hidden compartment as she prepared to abandon her cover if necessary. Marcus set down the industrial-sized pot he'd been washing and stepped closer to the service window, his trained eyes scanning for additional threats. The trap was set. For weeks, they'd been waiting for someone to threaten their asset directly. Brittany Summers, with her cruel smile and her phone already recording, was about to discover that the quiet girl in the corner wasn't as defenseless as she appeared. As Brittany approached Maya's table with her entourage trailing behind like eager hyenas, three federal agents prepared to reveal that sometimes the most dangerous people in a room are the ones nobody notices at all. The storm was about to break, and Maya Chen, the girl everyone thought was powerless, was about to show them exactly how much power she really had. The cafeteria's ambient noise seemed to fade as Brittany Summers approached Maya's table, her designer heels clicking against the polished floor like a countdown timer. Students at nearby tables began to notice the procession, conversations dying mid-sentence as phones emerged from pockets and backpacks. The modern teenager's instinct for viral content had kicked in. Something dramatic was about to happen, and everyone wanted to capture it. Maya kept her eyes fixed on her book, but her peripheral vision tracked every movement. The words on the page blurred as her heart rate climbed higher. Through years of security briefings, she'd learned to recognize the signs of escalating danger, and every instinct screamed that this moment was different from the usual hallway harassment. Brittany wasn't just approaching for a quick insult. She was performing for an audience. "Well, well, well," Brittany announced, her voice pitched to carry across the cafeteria. "Look what we have here. Little Miss Perfect all alone as usual." Maya's fingers tightened imperceptibly around her book's spine, but she didn't look up. The federal agents who drilled her on threat response had been clear. Never escalate, never engage, and always trust that help was closer than it appeared. Brittany's entourage fanned out around Maya's table like a pack of wolves. Jessica Chen, no relation to Maya despite the shared surname, held her phone at the perfect angle to capture everything. Madison Torres positioned herself to block any potential escape route toward the main cafeteria exit. Ashley Kim stood ready to provide backup commentary for whatever was about to unfold. "I'm talking to you," Brittany said, her voice taking on a dangerous edge. She reached out and deliberately knocked Maya's water bottle off the table, sending it clattering across the floor. "Don't you think it's rude to ignore people when they're trying to be friendly?" Across the cafeteria, Jake Morrison felt his jaw clench as he watched the scene unfold. His earpiece crackled with Sarah's voice. "Asset under direct verbal assault. Physical contact initiated. Recommend moving to secondary positions." Jake's response was barely audible as he pushed his cart closer to Maya's section. "Copy. Maintaining cover but closing distance. Marcus, status." From the kitchen, Marcus Thompson's voice was tight with controlled tension. "Visual confirmed. 4 aggressors, approximately 30 witnesses with recording devices. Exit routes Alpha and Bravo clear, Charlie compromised by crowd formation." Sarah Martinez closed her chemistry textbook and slipped it into her backpack, her movements appearing casual to anyone watching. But her fingers found the hidden compartments, checking the placement of her equipment. "Moving to intercept position. If this escalates to physical assault, we blow cover on my signal." Maya finally looked up from her book, her dark eyes meeting Brittany's with surprising steadiness. "I'm not ignoring you," she said quietly. "I just don't have anything to say." Brittany's smile was razor-sharp. "Oh, she speaks. I was starting to think you were mute, or maybe just too good to talk to us regular people." She gestured dramatically to the growing crowd of onlookers. "See, everyone's been wondering about you, Maya. You show up here with your fancy car service, your designer clothes hidden under those ugly sweaters, and you act like you're better than everyone else." "I don't think I'm better than anyone," Maya replied, her voice remaining level despite the tremor Jake could detect through the audio feed from her bracelet. "Really?" Brittany leaned forward, placing her hands on Maya's table. "Then why don't you ever talk to anyone? Why don't you join clubs or go to parties or do anything normal teenagers do? What makes you so special that you get to float through here like some kind of ghost?" The crowd around them had grown larger, drawn by the spectacle and the promise of drama. Students held their phones high, live streaming to social media platforms where viewer counts climbed rapidly. Comments flooded in from followers eager to see the quiet girl finally get what they perceived as her comeuppance. Maya's stress levels spiked again, her heart rate climbing past 110 beats per minute. In the command center 3 miles away, analysts watched her vital signs with growing concern. The lead coordinator's voice came through all 3 agents' earpieces simultaneously. assets showing signs of severe distress. Prepare for immediate extraction if necessary. But Maya surprised everyone by standing up slowly, her book still clutched in her hands. She was smaller than Brittany by several inches. But there was something in her posture that suggested she wasn't as fragile as she appeared. "You want to know why I don't join clubs or go to parties?" Maya asked, her voice carrying clearly across the now silent cafeteria. "Because I've learned that most people aren't worth the effort. They're cruel for entertainment, they hurt others to feel better about themselves, and they mistake kindness for weakness." Brittany's eyes flashed with anger. "Are you calling me cruel?" "I'm calling you exactly what you are," Maya replied. And for the first time since the confrontation began, her voice carried an edge that made several students step back instinctively. The response clearly wasn't what Brittany had expected. She'd been prepared for tears, for begging, for the kind of dramatic breakdown that would make for perfect social media content. Instead, she found herself facing someone who seemed utterly unafraid despite being outnumbered and surrounded. "You little bitch," Brittany snarled, her carefully maintained facade cracking. "You think you can talk to me like that?" She reached out and grabbed Maya's lunch tray, lifting it high above her head. The cafeteria held its collective breath as phones zoomed in to capture the moment. "Let's see how special you feel covered in food." Maya didn't flinch. She simply looked up at Brittany with those steady dark eyes and said, "I wouldn't do that if I were you." "Oh yes, and why not?" "Because," Maya said quietly, "you have no idea who you're messing with." Brittany laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the cafeteria walls. "What are you going to do? Tell your mommy? Call your lawyer? I'm so scared of little Maya Chen and her." She never finished the sentence. Instead, she hurled the tray downward with vicious force, sending Maya's sandwich, apple, and juice box flying. The food splattered across Maya's cardigan and jeans, staining the fabric and sending droplets across her book. The crowd erupted in gasps and nervous laughter as phones captured every moment. But Maya still didn't react the way Brittany expected. She simply looked down at her ruined clothes, then back up at her attacker with an expression that was almost pitying. "You just made a very big mistake," Maya said softly. Brittany, emboldened by the crowd's reaction and the lack of immediate consequences, decided to escalate further. She grabbed Maya's beloved copy of To Kill a Mockingbird, now stained with juice and food particles. "What's so important about this stupid book anyway?" Brittany demanded, waving it in the air. "Let's see how much you care about it when it's in pieces." She began tearing pages from the book, letting them flutter to the floor like confetti. The crowd's energy shifted, some students beginning to look uncomfortable as the bullying crossed from humiliation into destruction of property. But their phones kept recording, the promise of viral content overriding their moral discomfort. Maya watched her book being destroyed with an expression that Jake recognized from his years of protection work, the calm before the storm. Her stress indicators had actually begun to level off, which was more concerning than if they'd continued climbing. In his experience, that kind of sudden calm usually meant someone had stopped being afraid and started getting angry. "That's enough," Maya said, her voice cutting through the cafeteria noise with surprising authority. But Brittany was too caught up in her performance to recognize the warning signs. She threw the remains of the book at Maya's feet, and then, in a moment that would be replayed millions of times across social media platforms, she shoved Maya hard in the chest. Maya stumbled backward, her hip hitting the edge of the table hard enough to leave a bruise. For a split second, she looked genuinely vulnerable, a small girl who'd been physically assaulted by someone larger and stronger. That split second was all it took. 3 devices across the cafeteria received the same automated alert: physical assault DETCTD, assets COMPROMICD. Engage immediately. Jake Morrison dropped his mop with a clatter that echoed across the suddenly silent cafeteria. Sarah Martinez stood up from her table with fluid precision, her hand moving to her backpack. Marcus Thompson vaulted over the service counter in one smooth motion that definitely didn't belong to a food service worker. But it was Maya herself who spoke first, her voice carrying a new quality that made every student in the cafeteria suddenly understand they'd been watching the wrong person. "I tried to warn you," she said, looking directly into Brittany's phone camera. "I really did." The storm was about to break, and Brittany Summers was about to discover that the quiet girl she'd been tormenting wasn't defenseless at all. She was protected by people who were very, very good at their jobs. The transformation was instantaneous and terrifying. Jake Morrison's entire demeanor shifted in the span of a heartbeat. The slouched shoulders of a tired janitor straightened into the rigid posture of a federal agent. His weathered hands, which moments before had been gripping a mop handle, now moved with the precise efficiency of someone trained to neutralize threats. The hearing aid in his ear crackled with urgent communications as he crossed the cafeteria floor, no longer shuffling but moving with the predatory grace of an apex predator. "Federal agents," Jake announced, his voice cutting through the cafeteria like a blade. "Everyone step away from the girl, now." The effect was electric. Students who had been laughing and recording suddenly found themselves frozen in place, phones still raised but forgotten as their brains struggled to process what they were seeing. The friendly janitor they'd ignored for months was speaking with the kind of authority that made grown men obey without question. Brittany's face went white as Jake appeared beside her, seemingly materializing from nowhere. Her phone, still live-streaming to thousands of viewers, captured the moment her world turned upside down. "What? What are you talking about?" she stammered, but her voice had lost all its earlier venom. "Agent Morrison, Secret Service," Jake said, producing a badge that gleamed under the cafeteria's fluorescent lights. "You are currently assaulting a federal protectee. Remove your hands from the asset and step back immediately." But Jake wasn't alone. Sarah Martinez had abandoned all pretense of being a teenage transfer student. Her designer backpack hit the floor, revealing equipment that definitely didn't belong in a high school. She spoke rapidly into a communication device that had been disguised as a smartphone, her voice crisp and professional. "Command, this is Agent Martinez. Cover blown, asset compromised. We have physical assault on a federal protectee with approximately 40 witnesses and multiple live streams active. Requesting immediate backup and media containment protocols." The response crackled through her earpiece loud enough for nearby students to hear. "Copy, Agent Martinez. Backup en route, ETA 3 minutes. Local PD and federal response teams mobilizing. Secure the asset and contain the situation." Marcus Thompson completed the triangle of protection around Maya, but he was no longer the quiet kitchen worker students had grown accustomed to. His food service uniform couldn't hide the tactical gear underneath, and the way he moved suggested someone with serious military training. His eyes swept the crowd with the systematic precision of a threat assessment specialist, cataloging faces and identifying potential problems. "Kitchen secure," Marcus reported into his own communication device. "No additional threats detected in food service areas. Perimeter established around asset." Maya stood in the center of this protective triangle, food stains on her clothes but her posture now radiating a quiet confidence that hadn't been there moments before. She looked directly at Brittany's phone camera, knowing that thousands of people were watching this unfold in real time. "My name is Maya Chen," she said, her voice carrying clearly across the silent cafeteria. "My mother is Federal Judge Patricia Chen of the Ninth Circuit Court. For the past 6 months, my family has been under federal protection due to credible death threats related to my mother's work on organized crime cases." The livestream chat exploded with comments as viewers realized they were watching something far more serious than typical high school drama. Brittany's follower count was climbing rapidly, but not for the reasons she'd hoped. These three people, Maya continued, gesturing to her protectors, are federal agents assigned to ensure my safety. They've been watching me every day, documenting every interaction, recording every threat. She looked directly at Brittany, whose face had gone from white to green. Including yours. Agent Martinez stepped forward, her professional demeanor making her seem years older than the teenager she'd been pretending to be. Brittany Summers, you are being detained for assault on a federal protectee. You have the right to remain silent. Wait, Brittany's voice cracked with panic. This is insane. I didn't know. Nobody told me she was. I mean, how was I supposed to know? Ignorance of someone's protected status doesn't excuse assault, Agent Morrison replied coldly. You physically attacked a minor under federal protection while live streaming the assault to social media. That's not just bullying, that's a federal crime. The cafeteria had erupted into chaos. Students were frantically trying to delete their recordings, suddenly realizing they might have evidence of a federal crime on their phones. Others were calling parents, friends, anyone who might help them understand what they'd just witnessed. The livestream viewers were screenshotting everything, ensuring that this moment would be preserved forever across the internet. Jessica, Madison, and Ashley, Brittany's loyal followers, had backed away from their leader as if she'd suddenly become radioactive. Their own phones were still recording, but now they were documenting their friend's arrest rather than participating in what they'd thought was harmless entertainment. Please, Brittany begged, tears streaming down her face as the reality of her situation sank in. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt anyone. It was just supposed to be funny. Maya stepped forward and for a moment her expression softened. Funny for who, Brittany? You've been making my life miserable for months. You've encouraged others to exclude me, to mock me, to treat me like I'm less than human. Did you think that was funny too? I just... Brittany's voice dissolved into sobs as sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder by the second. Agent Thompson spoke into his communication device. Command, we have local law enforcement approaching, requesting federal jurisdiction protocols and media blackout procedures. This is about to become a circus. Through the cafeteria windows, students could see black SUVs pulling into the school parking lot, followed by local police cars and what appeared to be a mobile command center. The quiet Tuesday lunch period at Westfield Academy had just become a federal incident. Principal Harrison burst through the cafeteria doors, his face flushed and his usually perfect hair disheveled. What in God's name is happening here? He demanded, then stopped short when he saw the federal badges and the protective formation around Maya. Principal Harrison, Agent Martinez said professionally, we're going to need to lock down this school immediately. No one enters or leaves until we've debriefed all witnesses and secured all recording devices. Locked down, but we have classes we have. Sir, Agent Morrison interrupted, this is now a federal crime scene. Your cooperation isn't optional. Maya watched the chaos unfold around her with a mixture of relief and sadness. Relief that she no longer had to pretend to be helpless, that the months of careful acting were finally over. But sadness too, because she genuinely hoped to have a normal high school experience, to make real friends who liked her for who she was rather than fearing her for who her mother was. Maya, Agent Martinez said gently, we need to get you out of here. The media will be arriving soon, and your safety is our primary concern. But Maya shook her head. Not yet, I want to say something first. She turned to address the crowd of students, many of whom were still recording despite the federal agent's presence. Her voice carried the authority of someone who'd grown up in courtrooms and federal buildings, someone who understood the weight of words and consequences. I never wanted any of this, she said. I never wanted to be different, or special, or protected. I just wanted to be a normal teenager who could go to school without worrying about whether someone might try to hurt me or my family. But normal isn't an option when your mother puts dangerous people in prison. She looked directly at Brittany, who was now in handcuffs and being read her rights by a federal agent who just arrived. I tried to handle your bullying quietly because I hoped you'd get bored and move on. I never wanted you to face federal charges. But you made a choice today. You chose to escalate from words to violence, and choices have consequences. The live stream had reached over 50,000 viewers, and the comments were a mixture of shock, disbelief, and grudging respect for the quiet girl who just revealed herself to be anything but powerless. As Maya was escorted toward the exit by her protective detail, she paused at Brittany's table where her former tormentor's belongings still sat. She picked up Brittany's designer water bottle, the same brand Brittany had mocked Maya for not being able to afford, and set it gently on the table. "I hope you learned something from this," Maya said quietly, her words meant for Brittany but captured by dozens of phones. "I hope you learned that you never really know who someone is or what they're dealing with. And I hope you learned that being cruel to others isn't entertainment, it's just cruel." As the federal agents escorted Maya Chen out of the cafeteria and toward the waiting convoy of black SUVs, the students of Westfield Academy were left to process what they'd just witnessed. The quiet girl they'd ignored, dismissed, and in some cases tormented, had just revealed herself to be one of the most protected people in the building. The viral video of Brittany's arrest would be viewed millions of times, spawning countless discussions about bullying, privilege, and the hidden lives of those around us. But for Maya Chen, it marked the end of one chapter and the beginning of another, one where she no longer had to hide who she was or pretend to be powerless. The storm had passed, and in its wake everything had changed.